For some context, I am a female, 11 years old at the time of the story, and this happened during summer, when my family and I went on a family vacation to Las Vegas. There was a bunch of us, since we had a family visiting from out of the country. After hitting the swimming pool, my family wanted to go to another hotel to go shopping. My grandma, who had just immigrated from the Philippines a few years before and knew very limited English, and I decided to go back up to her hotel room because she was tired and I wanted to change before meeting back up with the rest of her family later on for lunch. We got in the elevator, and as it was closing, an older gentleman, maybe in his early to mid-50s, asked to hold the door. I remember my mom telling me not to let any strangers know where our room was, so before he got in, I pressed 2 more floors, and thank God I did. He got in and started making small talk. He looked at my shirt. I was wearing a Beach Babe Contest tank top from Limited 2, and said, "Where's the Beach Babe Contest? I'd like to be a judge and make sure you win." My grandma and I smiled at each other and laughed. Then, he asked what room we were staying in. I told him that we were visiting a family member's room. He then asked if we were staying at the hotel and if he could escort us back to our room. I told him no. His face at some point turned cold, whereas before, he appeared friendly. He began to insist he walk us back to our room. At that point, I began panicking and just fell silent. My grandma stared at me, and after what felt like an eternity, his smile came back, and then he said, "Come on, I'm just being nice. Right, Grandma?" I remember my stomach sinking, until finally, the elevator door opened and a couple walked in. I don't know what in me told me to trust them, but I blurted out, "I don't know this man, but he's forcing me to let him walk me to my hotel room, and I'm scared." The man then laughed and told them I was his niece. I kept my composure as best as I could, but I remember starting to cry, and I couldn't stop crying. My grandma was confused because she didn't really know what was going on. The couple told us to get off the elevator so that I could call my parents, and they walked me and my grandma down to the hotel lobby to the reception desk. I still get chills thinking about what may have happened that day. I was in Atlanta at the time. My best friend was in town, and she was able to get us a nice hotel room near bars with her points. We got back to the hotel late, but before midnight, and we were intoxicated, but not blackout drunk. We got ready for bed and put on our pajamas and fell right to sleep in the queen-size bed. She'd accidentally put down just one occupant on the reservation, and we didn't bother to update it upon checking in. Several hours later, I woke up blurry eyes and saw a tall man just standing at us, and in my stupor state, I calmly asked, "What are you doing here?" My friend then woke up at the sound of my voice and asked what was going on. He seemed frozen, like a deer in the headlights. He told us he was hotel security, and there had been a report of a disturbance, and he was here to ask us to quiet down. Confused, we told him we had been asleep for hours, and he told us okay, and to have a good night. He left out the door, and we went right back to sleep. The next morning, we went down to talk to management, because as we discussed, we realized something very strange had happened. Management talked to my friend and then called someone more senior to talk to her. I was on the phone watching from across the room. As they brought out the second person and they spoke with her, she became sheet white. They had no on-site security team, and no one had called in any disturbances the night before. They immediately moved us to a different room and upgraded the rest of our stay. To this day, I wonder if that room was targeted because it was only supposed to have one woman in there at the time, and when the person saw the two of us, they panicked and decided to not move forward. I also wonder what would have happened if our reaction was not tempered by alcohol and a dreaming state. If we had screamed, would that have triggered something more sinister? I was staying in a hotel on the outskirts of town for a business trip. After a long day of meetings, I decided to go grab a drink at the hotel bar. As I sat down, I couldn't help but notice the man sitting at the other end of the bar, staring intently at me with a sinister grin on his face. I tried to ignore him and ordered my drink, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching my every move. I decided to finish my drink quickly and headed back to my room, but as I got up to leave, the man approached me and asked me if he could buy me another drink. I politely declined, but he persisted, and I reluctantly agreed. As we chatted, I realized that he knew an unsettling amount of personal information about me, including my name, where I worked, and where I was staying. He then revealed that he had been following me for weeks, watching my every move and learning everything he could about me. He had been waiting for this encounter to finally make his move. I felt the blood drain from my face as I realized the gravity of the situation. I quickly finished my drink and made an excuse to leave, but I could feel his eyes on me as I rushed out of the bar. I immediately called hotel security and reported the man, but they couldn't find a trace of him anywhere. There was nothing. I still can't shake the feeling that he's out there somewhere, watching. I was spending the night in a hotel in Oklahoma City that is known for having ghosts that terrorize NBA players and opposing teams. The hotel was built in the early 1900s and is said to be haunted by the ghost of a maid called Effie. Legend says that Effie had a relationship with the hotel's founder, W.B. Skirvin. When it was discovered that she was with a child, he locked her in a room on the top floor. Distraught, Effie plummeted from the hotel window. The hotel has an interesting history. All in all, having been known as a speakeasy during Prohibition, it has also been the host of many famous and interesting faces throughout the decades. It was closed for over a decade, fell into disrepair, only to become an urban exploring hotspot before being completely renovated and reopened. Guests have reported unexplained noises, objects moving unexpectedly, and even being touched by something or someone unseen. As for me and my experience, I had a lovely evening, including dinner at the hotel restaurant and an after-dinner drink in the piano bar. We went back to the room, settled in, and fell fast asleep. No problems. At some point in the night, I had a dream that someone was in my room, moving around. It was just this dark shadow, slowly going across the room In my dream, I just watched it move. Then, I woke up. When I awoke, the room was dark. There was also a dark figure of a person literally standing beside the bed right next to me. It was clearly a human form just standing there. I thought maybe I was still dreaming at first, but I was too conscious, you know? It was like being in a dream state. I reached out to see if anything was actually there. I grabbed onto what looked like this thing's left arm and pulled on it. The thing fell into the bed, right across my upper legs. I could literally feel the weight of this figure on me. I started to yell out and bolt upright in bed, trying to push this thing off me. My significant other wakes up in a panic, wondering what's wrong. And the thing is gone. I almost would have chalked it up as being sleep paralysis, which I've never experienced before. But aside from the hotel's haunted history and other guest experiences, my significant other said he was hearing noises through the night, as though someone was moving through the room. Maybe it was Effie. Maybe it was someone or something else. But I wasn't able to fall asleep again that night until the sun started to rise and those little bits of light started coming in through the closed curtains. About 2 years ago, I was having some relationship issues with my then girlfriend, and I got tired of arguing and got a hotel room for a couple of days just to cool off. This was in the middle of summer, and the hotel I stayed at, while not super fancy, was pretty nice. Holiday Inn level kind of place, located near a mall. It was in the middle of the week, so I was one of only a few people staying there. I was having some pretty bad bouts of insomnia at the time due to some personal issues that were stressing me out. I was up until about 3 a.m. both nights I was there, and I went out for a smoke multiple times in front of the hotel. I ran into a guy that gave me bad vibes outside multiple times. He was wearing a shirt with a UFO on it. It's abducting a guy that says, "Get in, loser." And he started talking to me about UFOs. He seemed very off, in the way a guy who abuses stimulants and never sleeps is. This guy kept on ranting to me about aliens and spaceships. And even though that's a topic I'm interested in, this guy was creeping me out. I finished my cig and went back into the hotel. He followed behind me while trying to continue talking to me. I walked into the elevator and he got on with me. At this point, I'm getting super annoyed. I hit my floor and get off the elevator, and this guy gets off too. I figured, great, he's on this floor too. But I realized that he was legit following me. I got to my room, and he had the nerve to ask if I wanted to hang out at 3 a.m. with a stranger in a hotel room. I declined and went in kind of nervous that this guy knew my room number. But hey, that's what locks are for. I turned on the TV and started watching Adult Swim, trying to take my mind off this weirdo. About 20 minutes later, I decided I wanted a Sprite and some chips from the vending machine. I opened the door, and this guy is literally standing right outside my room still. I closed the door and called the front desk and basically said there's a nut job essentially stalking me. They sent security up to try and figure out what his deal was. Turns out, he wasn't even staying there, and they kicked him out. The guy at the front desk seemed as weirded out as I was. I always wondered what that dude's deal was, and if he was going to try rob me or something. One of the weirdest people I've ever met.